Hi guys, today I'm here to share my top 4 tips on how to sustainably learn any language and become a native. I know a lot of you out there who are super ambitious about learning languages and put in a lot of hard work, especially in the preparation phase where you might start making a rigorous and detailed plan of exactly what you would want to do, lectures, vocabulary, grammar, and etc. However, you stop after
2 weeks because it's just too demotivating. Or you're not making any progress.
it starts becoming quite dry, and then you sort of let go, right? So carry on watching to find out exactly what you need to do and the right mindset to have before you embark on this exciting journey of learning so many new languages. Alright, so tip number 1. It is absolutely essential to get into the groove of the language. What I mean by that is find something that intrigues you, and maybe it could be a goal. You want to travel around freely and be able to speak that language while you're there, right? Or it could be music that you love, and it could also be film, movies that you enjoy watching. Let me give you my example. I started loving Korean music and Japanese music as well when I was in my teens, and so I started listening to all kinds of Japanese songs, Korean songs, and I got so intrigued and loved the melodies of the songs that I started imitating and humming and singing along, right? And that was unconscious, so that was a long time of my teenage years that I was just singing along and then loving the melody. And then one day I asked myself, it would be really interesting to find out the lyrics of the songs and what I'm actually singing. And so that got me into trying to learn the language and understanding the lyrics. And you see, by that entry point, it was not difficult for me. It wasn't something that I had to spend a lot of energy on trying to figure out, oh, this is something interesting for me or not. Not at all. I'd listen to songs every day, I'd sing along, so now I want to know the lyrics. And that was a very natural way of me getting into the language and wanting to start learning Korean and Japanese, for example. Tip number 2 is you need to start imitating people speaking their language, their native language. So, what I mean is, when I previously mentioned humming along, singing along, that is one form of imitating already. So the second way you could do this is to speak to local people, natives. If you're not in the country yet, or if you can't find any friends of that language that you want to learn, it's also completely fine. Watch videos, watch people who are native in that language on YouTube and start imitating exactly how they speak. And it's not only about grammar and vocab and all that, it's so much more about the flow, because every language has its own sound and melody. So you have to get into that flow, and then you would sound so much more natural and not at all as if you are learning these things from paper and books. So it's not stiff anymore. The language becomes very dynamic. And this is why I keep on saying, please do imitate people. I have a tip on that as well. Once you have the opportunity to start speaking to natives in that language, what you need to do is anytime when you hear a certain phrase, now not words, not vocab words, phrase that comes out so native, so natural, very useful for you, you know that you will use that phrase. Go ahead, take your voice recorder and record it, say it. So the minute that the other person says it to you, remember it, remember the tone, the stress, the pronunciation, and then quickly record it yourself, repeating it once yourself. And then later on, go back to that recording and listen to yourself again. I promise you, this does wonders. So it doesn't have to be every single phrase that you need to do this for, but there are certain phrases that are really useful and you want to listen to them, you want to repeat that yourself in that moment. Secondly, you want to go back and listen to that recording again, because then you will become very familiarized with that sentence and you will be able to use it in the near future. Now, the third tip is to really prepare yourself for daily conversations. Do not start with the goal of, I see lots of people starting with such a burden, right, of huge schedule, plan of all the words that you're going to learn, vocab, grammar, the hard grammar that you're going to learn, but then realize after 2 years in, you're still unable to say a phrase in that language. So yes, you are able to understand vocab and, but that doesn't help you in everyday conversation. So the goal is, and that was my goal. I came from South Africa. Yes, I did have a bit of background in Afrikaans, goeiemiddag, baie dankie, and etc. But coming here to Austria, yes, Austria, which is a German-speaking country, that didn't really help me at all, right? So I had to prepare sentences that will really help me on a daily basis, that I could really use. Go to the supermarket, go to wherever, to a shop, and then be able to pay my own groceries and just say basic things like thank you and etc. But make sure you're writing down and contemplating, thinking about these phrases that you will use, and practice those so fluently that you'd be able to go and say it to any person. What I also think is it's totally all right to take on a different approach when you start learning a language. I think the systematic or the traditional way is to really go in with a lot of grammar, vocab, and etc. But for me, my approach is really to become so intrigued and drawn in by the language, because it comes with the culture, it comes with the people, it comes with so much more than just things in the book, right? So for me, it was very clear if I wanted to start learning a language, I'd forgive myself if I didn't really excel, I didn't really have so much of vocabulary, but I had the most important phrases that I needed. So start by learning phrases, things that you would really be able to use, and then build on, because as soon as you get hooked and you find an entry point and you start listening to music in that language, start watching movies, then everything else becomes so natural and it will just come along without having to invest so much of effort to keep yourself engaged, because the whole learning process could be long. Now, the last tip is to just forgive yourself if you are not perfect in a language. I think you need to excuse yourself first before thinking or worrying about local people, that they would eventually start picking on your pronunciation or your grammar that isn't so perfect, and etc. I think the right attitude is to go to a foreign country, experience the culture, experience the people fully, giving yourself so much of confidence in saying, here I am. I'm so fascinated by your culture and your country. That's why I'm here. And I am doing my very best to communicate and to speak to you in your native language. So this is the right mindset and attitude to have, right? Lots of perfectionists like myself, I deal with it every single day. I always think that I'm not perfect enough. I don't have a perfect grammar structure. I don't have a perfect sentence. What do I do? But I've learned through experience, and a lot of my own approach to learning languages is not to be perfect. Go up to people. If I, in the beginning of, going to France and saying good day, bonjour, or bonjour, or whatever it is, it's okay as long as you see the response. You see people saying bonjour back to you, right? And everything just becomes so irrelevant. So you don't have to pick on yourself. No one is picking on you. At least that's what you need to think. And then as time goes by and you've built enough vocab and phrases and etc. to communicate, then you can start really picking on your own pronunciation. Bonjour, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning. And this applies to all languages, right? It doesn't really matter where you are. You could be in Germany, you could be in China, you could be in Japan and Korea. Any of you could be in South Africa. And no matter where you are, the most important thing is to first be aware that you are not a native. Go in with the right attitude, and then as you become better, start picking on your pronunciation as the very last step. We all have a very busy daily life, right? So we have to work, we have to study, we have to do so many things. We have family, we have friends that we have to attend to. And in these circumstances, you don't really have all that much of time to learn, unless you're learning this language as a profession. Then that's a complete different story. But if you don't have so much of time and energy to invest, and imagine the following: if you are able to go to different countries on your vacation, and it's possible for you to order, to buy, to communicate in a basic manner with local people, isn't that already such a big accomplishment? I think you need to give yourself more credit, even for that, because then your motivation will stay, and then it becomes more and more fun. So, for example, I just recently went to Spain with my family, and my husband speaks a bit of Spanish, but obviously not fluent, and I don't speak a word of Spanish. But I learned two phrases from him. First thing is la cuenta, por favor, and the second thing is con tarjeta, por favor. Those are the two things. Now, as you can hear, I'm not good in Spanish. I am not a native in Spanish. It doesn't matter, but I made sure that every single time there was an opportunity to say those two phrases, I would be the one running to say it. And now I managed to get those two phrases in my head, and so it was super simple. This is just an example of what I mentioned before in terms of really getting into the flow, forgiving yourself for not being perfect with the pronunciation, but speaking, even if it's just two vocabs or anything like that, but using it. Please do give yourself praises. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder whenever you are able to say basic phrases. Last but not least, I think learning a language is so much more than just speaking it, right? It comes with a package. It's the whole culture, it's the etiquette, it's the, way that people communicate with each other that is so rich and so intriguing. So if you are intending to start learning a new language, make sure that you also familiarize yourself with the culture that comes with it, because once you discover all these different facets and elements of a language, you will then be drawn in automatically. You do not have to think about, what's my schedule for today? I have to learn how many vocabs. These things will come along. So at the end of the day, my dears, it's all about feeling grateful that you are able to use this wonderful tool to communicate with people. And what really matters is the sincerity. So if you are there to learn their language and prove that you genuinely love their culture, anyone is willing to speak to you. And I think the resonance and also the response coming from a native with so much of patience and willingness to speak to you is absolutely priceless. So every time when I'm speaking a foreign language and I get a response from whomever, I feel super blessed, because there are people who aren't patient out there and who don't really want to speak to you. So for all of those who are willing to speak to you, give you the opportunity to learn their language and culture, embrace them and enjoy the process of learning this language. I'm wishing you guys so much of positive vibes and lots of energy for studying your new language. And please let me know in the comments below, what are your tricks and what are your experiences in learning new languages. If you have any thoughts on this video, please do reach out to me. I would be thrilled to hear from you. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next video. Bye!